Well, one of the hardest things to get across in the last 3 decades and more has been the scale of evil that is behind world events. It's people's difficulty to grasp the nature of that evil and the depth of that evil that gets them to say things like, they'd never do that, mate. Oh, that could never happen. No one would ever do that. Well, actually, you may never do that, but they are doing it by the hour and getting off on the impact on the population, individually and collectively. Cathy O'Brien was, as a little girl, taken from her intergenerational satanic child abusing family, and she was taken away from her family by Gerald Ford, who later ended up as the useless, can't walk and chew gum at the same time, President of the United States. And he took her into a mind control, satanic, government, military, intelligence run program, which was part of the infamous MK Ultra that was instigated by the Nazis, who were brought out of Germany at the end of the Second World War and were put in place to create NASA, Nazi NASA, and MK Ultra. They included in the shadows people like Joseph Mengele, the angel of death in the concentration camps. And they were brought out of Germany under an American military intelligence operation known as Project Paperclip. And there was a section, a part, an elite part, you might call it, for want of a word, called Project Monarch. And this was for women, overwhelmingly, to be mind controlled, to be slaves and couriers of information for the elite. And it was based on compartmentalizing the mind into self-contained compartments, which they call in the mind control industry alters, and programming those alters to carry out tasks or to be sexually abused by famous people. And the way it worked is that they gave them a front altar, as they called it, which was the personality that people, the people themselves thought was them, and that people around them who didn't know the game thought was them. But in the subconscious were all these other alters which can be triggered to carry out, as with Manchurian candidates, to be by famous people like Gerald Ford, Father George Bush, Bill Clinton, Dick Cheney, Hillary Clinton. On and on it went. And so when the back altar replaced the front altar, the new altar experienced and then the front altar was brought back, which knew nothing about this. This is how it was all kept secret within the compartments of the mind of these so-called presidential models in Project Monarch. So this was the world that Cathy O'Brien was literally born into. And she is the most extraordinary, I'd say human being, but that's not enough, consciousness, in that she went through being constantly by adults and famous politicians, etc., throughout her childhood years, being subjected to Satanism and then to be abused later as a young woman. And I don't need to see the film Trance to know that Cathy O'Brien is the most exceptional woman, because I've known her a long time, which I'll come to in a second. In 1996, out of the blue, I received through the post a book from an acquaintance of mine, actually he was living in Scotland, and it was called Transformation of America, and it said, you need to read this book. And Transformation of America was by Cathy O'Brien and her partner, Mark Phillips. And I took it upstairs and I read it from front to back in one go. It was absolutely devastating. As she described the rich and famous, yes, including Father Bush and Dick Cheney, and Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and so on, who had abused her and her daughter Kelly, who was born literally in captivity in the program, and therefore was in the mind control and the abuse from birth. To read and ponder on the scale of empathy deletion, the soulless nature of those who were doing this, who could not look in the eyes of Cathy and all these others, because there were legions of them, and still are, still going on, could not look in their eyes of these little kids and see and feel even a smear of empathy. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the mentality running your world. It's the mentality that manufactures hunger for reasons of control, that manufactures health for reasons of control and power, that orchestrates wars that do not need to happen. They are made to happen for control and for power. This is the satanic mind behind world events.